hey, Tess,
Well,
he must give her.
actually, we didn't meet up yesterday, so we're actually a little bit ahead of that. We're now holding in Kesubos Vav Gimel.
Vav Gimel.
Yeah, because we didn't meet yesterday, so you didn't move your
Right,
bookmarks.
Vav Gimel. So why don't I have hey Tess here.
Yeah, we did that yesterday, so
Vav
let's
Gimel,
move
right,
on.
all right. Vav Gimel. Okay, here you go. If she agreed to bring him 1,000 dinners, corresponding to this, he must contract to give her 1,500 zuz. But corresponding to appraised goods, he contracts to give a fifth less. Goods appraised for 100, which are worth 100, is nothing but 100. Goods appraised for 100, he gives 31 selim and a dinner. For 400, he gives 500. Whatever the groom contracts, he contracts less a fifth. If she agreed to bring him money, a silver seller becomes 6 dinners. The groom takes upon himself 10 dinners for the basket per 100. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says everything follows the local custom. If one marries off his daughter without specifying, he should not give her less than 50 zuz. If he agreed to take her in unprovided, the husband cannot say, when I take her into my house, I will clothe her with my clothing. Rather, he must clothe her while she is still in her father's house. Likewise, if one marries off an orphan, he may not give her less than 50 zuz. There is sufficient in the coffer. They provide her according to the honor due her. Okay.
Okay. So basically, just to summarize these three Mishnahs that we didn't get to learn together yesterday is basically when the bride comes in with a certain adunya, and whether it's cash or property, they're not assessed. They tend to exaggerate in one direction or another. So where the properties tend to be overvalued. So the overvalued amount is written in the in at least overvalued amount is written in the kasuba. Basically, whatever's written in the kasuba is what they have to give. But if there was cash given, then he has to return more than what was given because he had the opportunity value of using the cash, and it's not considered ribis because he's not necessarily going to pay it back. You know, he might inherit her. It's only if
Right.
she inherits him or is divorced that she takes the value of her kasuba. So it's not so that isn't considered ribis. Anyway, that's just the Al Regel Achas summary of the Mishnahs that we learned there. All right, Yisoma shehisiata ima or acheha midata. Okay, so now we have an orphan. Her father died and she is underage, and now her mother and brothers decide that they're going to marry her off, and part of the Nadunya, what's unwritten over here, but ArtScroll explains in the commentary, is that it seems like the standard practice was that 1/10 of the estate should be given as an Adunya for the daughter when she gets married. Okay. Now, if the mother and brothers say, "Listen, we're not giving off a tenth of the estate," and the daughter who's getting married says, "Look, I don't care. That's fine with me. I accept that." So she now gets married. V'kasula the Maya or Chamishim Zuz, and they gave her a small nadunya from the Yerusha. Okay, 100 or 50 zuz. Okay. When she comes of age, יכולה היא משתגדיל להוציא מיד מה שראוי להינשאן לה. She says, no, that was a very skimpy nadunya that you gave over there, and now you need to give more of this nadunya to my husband. Because what's it in her interest? First of all, to her husband. Second of all, if she's divorced or the husband dies, then the money comes to her instead of going to the rest of the Yerusha, right? So that's in her interest to sue for it. And the fact that she agreed is meaningless because she agreed when she was a minor, and her agreement is meaningless. The only thing she had to agree to was the marriage,
Right.
because that's what Chazal said when you have a marriage of an orphan, then her agreement is necessary because she can also do miyun. She can also refuse and say, I'm out of this marriage without her husband's consent. Okay, so Rabbi Yehuda Omer, im hisi es habas harishona, he says, look, let me add some context to this. Is Rabbi Yehuda, if she's got older sisters who got married while the father was alive, then that sets a precedent for how much the father gives as an adunya. Yinasen l'shniya b'derech shenasen l'rishona. So however much was given to the older sister when the father was alive is the amount that's due to the younger sister when she gets married. And it could be more or it could be less than the 10%. So use that as your knowledge. If you don't know, then yeah, 10% he agrees. וחכמים אומרים פעמים שאדם עני והעשיר או עשיר והעני. Sometimes a person is rich and becomes poor, or poor and becomes rich. And I think, as I shall explain, this is talking more figuratively than practically. Not that he got richer or poorer, it's just that his attitude became more generous or more miserly. So you can't judge it based on that. So the Chachamim, they disagree with Rabbi Yehuda and say no, we're just going to take the 10% rule because we don't know what his intentions would have been. Ele shamen hanechasim v'nosin la. You take an estimate of what the estate is worth, and a tenth goes to the daughter. I thought, honestly, when I saw that, I thought, wow, a tenth is big. That's a heck of a lot of the inheritance that's just going to go straight to a daughter for. I mean, how many children are there? We don't know how many children there are, and they're always just saying a tenth. So um, so anyway, that's just me. Um, Mishna Zayin, Hamash lishmaos labito. Um, so he gives money by through a shaliach. So in other words, um he gave money to this shaliach and said to him, look, I want you to go and buy a field or something else yeah, in order to buy a field for her nadunya for her wedding. And now the father dies, leaving the money in the hand of the shaliach. Okay, so now remember, the money's in the hand of the shaliach, and he has instructions from the father to go and buy a field to give to the daughter as an adunya. And the daughter, an adult daughter, says, he omers, Ne'eman bali alai. What the heck? Just give the money straight to my husband. He'll do with the money as he sees fit, and just put it into the kesuba. That's the nadunya. So says the Tanakama, Yaseh hashalish ma'ashehu shlash biyado. Sorry, the shaliach is the shaliach of the father, and especially now that the father's died, it becomes like a tzavah. He has to do exactly what the father said: buy a field, and give that to the daughter, and now the husband eats the paris. Okay, Divrei Rabbi Meir, and that is what Rabbi Meir says. Rabbi Yossi Omer, וכי אינה אלא שדה והיא רוצה למוכרה, הרי היא מכורה מעכשיו. This is what that doesn't make any logical sense. What if he'd already bought the field? And now the daughter has ownership of the field. She can sell it and give the money to her husband. So, why so why are you ignoring her will? The fact is that the money is basically given to her already. So why not just give it to her and let her do what she wants to do with it anyway? Because you're just like being stuck on procedure when there's a practical point over here that she can do what she wants with it anyway. When is this true? When you're talking about an adult daughter, aval bekatana ein maaseh katana klum. That's irrelevant because if she's a katana, she has no power to do
Wow.
business. So therefore, you ignore her words. Okay. Hamadiris ishto mi lehanoslo. Now, we enter a situation of domestic trouble. A husband takes a neder that his wife may not have any benefit from him. Okay, now we just have to insert a little bit of context over here. A person can only make a neder on something that he owns, that he has the right to withhold the use of. Okay, so if Fred can tell Bob, my house is chayrim to you. And then since it's Fred's house, Bob is not allowed to have benefit from the house. That's the nature of the thing. But what you can't do is Fred cannot go to Bob and say your house is chayrim to you because it's not Fred's house. He has no power to do that. Okay, so now if the husband has a duty, he has conjugal duties to his wife, which she effectively owns. And he cannot therefore make say neder against his conjugal duties. But what he can do is he cannot say make a neder on the money that he owes to support her. So therefore, when this Mishnah is telling us that he's making a neder of what his wife cannot benefit from him, it's only talking about the things that he can give her over and above his legal duties to her. Okay. So it could be a situation where they've agreed that he's not going to support her and she's going to keep the proceeds of her money, and now his money can now become asa to her. So they've had a marital spat, and he says, you no hana from me. Ad shloshim yom yamid parnas. So he has 30 days in which he can cool off and try and get a hataras nadarim. And he can appoint a, a third party to give his wife what he wants to give her, and then it's not considered hana from him. Yasim can, but if it's more than this, yotzi v'yitein ksuba, then that's going to be humiliating to her when the word gets out that that he's made a neder against her, and therefore this is time for to force him to divorce her and give and pay out her ksuba. Okay, Rabbi Yehuda Omer Yisrael, he says it's different between Yisrael and Kohanim, because Kohanim have no option to remarry their wives after they've divorced them. Okay. He says, "But Yisrael chodesh echad yikayem u'shnaim yotzi v'yitzen ketzuba." He says, but if it's more shnaim 2 months, not literally 2 months, because then there's a gray area between 1 month and 2 months. It's from the first day of the second month. So he's agreeing with the Tanakhama when it comes to Yisrael. However, the Kohanim shnaim yikayem u'shlosha yotzi. 2 months is the limit for Kohanim, just because we want to give them a longer cool down period so that they don't divorce, because otherwise there's no recourse. But Shlosha Yotzi Yitain Kesuba. But after that, even the Kohanim have to divorce their wives and pay out the Kesuba. Okay,
Okay.
back to Daled Gimel.
Okay. Oh, a female proselyte whose daughter converted with her and subsequently committed adultery, the latter is liable to strangling. Neither the requirement to take her to the door of the father's house applies to her, nor the 100 seller. Even if her conception had not been in holiness, but her birth had been in holiness, she is liable to be to stoning. Neither the requirement to take her to the door of the father's house applies to her, nor to the 100 seller. If both her conception and her birth were in holiness, she is like a daughter of Israel in all respects. If she has a father, but she has no door of the father's house, or if she has a door of the father's house, but she has no father, she is nevertheless liable to stoning. The door of her father's house was intended only as a precept. The father has the authority over his daughter regarding her erison, whether affected by money, by document, or by relations. He has the right to her findings, her handiwork, and the absolution of her vows, and he receives bill of divorce, but he does not enjoy the usufruct during her lifetime. If she married, the husband exceeds him in that he enjoys the usufruct during her lifetime. If he is liable for her support, her ransom, and her burial. Rabbi Yehuda says even the poorest in Israel will not hire fewer than 2 flutes and a lamenting woman. No. She is still under the authority of her father until she enters the authority of her husband at marriage. If the father gave her over to the agents of the husband, she is in the authority of her husband. If the father went along with the husband's agents, or if the father's agents went along with the husband's agents, she is still in the authority of her father. If the father's agent give her over to the husband's agent, she is in the authority of her husband. Okay.
Okay, Yevamos.
Okay. Almost. Okay. In a mistake. Should be Yud base.
Yud Gimel.
A woman whose husband and son went overseas, and they came and told her, your husband died and then your son. And she married, and afterward they told her that her worst had occurred. She must leave her husband, and any child born before or after is a mamzer. If they told her your son died and then your husband, and she underwent yibum, and afterward they told her that the reverse had occurred, she must leave her husband, and any child born before or after is a mamzer. If they told her your husband died and she married, and afterwards they told her that he was alive, but then alive then, but now he's dead, she must leave her husband, and any child born before is a mamzer, but a child born after is not a mamzer. If they told her your husband died and she was then betrothed, and then her husband reappeared, she may return to him. Even if the last one gave her a bill of divorce, he does not disqualify her from the priesthood. Elazar by Masa expounded the following: a woman divorced from her husband, but not a woman divorced from a man who is not her husband. A man whose wife went overseas and they came and told him, your wife died, and he married her sister, and afterwards his wife reappeared, she may return to him. she is permitted to marry the relatives of the second woman. The second woman is permitted to marry his relatives, and if the first woman died, she is permitted to marry the second. If they told him your wife died and he married her sister, and afterwards they told him she was alive but now she's dead, the child born before is a mamzer and not the child born after. Rabbi Yossi said, anyone who disqualifies the others disqualifies for himself. Anyone who does not disqualify for others does not disqualify for himself. If they told him your wife died and he married her paternal sister, and then they told him you died and he married her maternal sister, then they told him she died and he married her paternal sister, and then they told him she died and he married her maternal sister, and then it was discovered that they were all alive, he is permitted to the first, third, fifth, and they released their co-wives, but he prohibited to the second and fourth, and cohabitation with either of them does not release a co-wife. If he cohabitated with the second after the first one's death, he is permitted to the second and the fourth, and they release their co-wives, but is prohibited to the third and fifth, and cohabitation with either of them does not release her co-wife. Wow.
Okay.
Okay. We have sukkah. And this should be Daled Tes. How is the water libation done? He fulfilled golden flagon holding 3 lugim from the Shiloach. When they reached the water gate, they sounded Tekiah, Trua, and Anakiah, and he went up the ramp and turned to his left. There were 2 silver bowls there. You ever heard it said they were a plaster, but their surfaces were darkened from wine. Each had a hole like a thin nostril, one wide and one the other narrower, so that both would drain out at the same time. The western one was for water, the eastern one was for wine. He poured the flagon of water into the bowl for wine, and the flagon of wine into the bowl for water. He fulfilled his obligation. Rabbi Yehuda says he would pour with 1 log all days, 8 days. To the pourer they would say, "Raise your hand," for once someone poured it over the feet, and all the people pelted him with estrogen. Just as he performed on a weekday, so it is performed on the Sabbath, except that he would fill an unconsecrated golden barrel on the eve of the Sabbath from the Shiloach and place it in a chamber. If they were spilled or uncovered, he would refill it from the laver, or uncovered wine and water unfit for the altar. Okay.
One more. Khalil.
Um, the flute is played 5 or 6 days. This is the flute of the Beis Shueva, which overrides neither Sabbath nor festival. They said, whoever does not see the rejoicing of the Beis Shueva has never saw rejoicing in his lifetime.
Okay.
On to Truma. I missed the place. Okay. Yud Aleph. If one put an onion into lentils, if it was whole, it was permitted. But if you cut it up, if it imparts a flavor. In the case of all the dishes where the whole are cut up, if it imparts a flavor, Rabbi Yehuda permits. In the case of pickled fish, since it is used only to remove the bad smell. If one grated an apple and put it into dough and leavened it, it is forbidden. If barley fell into a cistern of water, even though it's tainted the water is permitted. If one takes out of the oven warm bread and puts it over the mouth of a jar of truma wine, Reb Meir forbids, but Reb Yehuda permits. Reb Yossi permits of wheat, but forbids of barley because barley absorbs.
Okay.
And oleos. Okay. Yud Aleph Hey. If a person is lying on the threshold while corpse bearers pass over him, Reb Shammai says he does not spread tumor, whereas Beis Hillel says he spreads tumor. If the tumor is inside the house while tahor people pass over him, Beis Shammai declares him tahor, whereas Beis Hillel declares him tameh. If a dog ate corpse flesh and then died and is presently lying across the threshold of a house, Reb Meir says if its neck is a handbreadth wide, tumor spreads into the house, and if not, tumor does not spread into the house. Reb Yossi says we check the tumor. If it is inside the doorstop, the house becomes tameh. If it is outside the doorstop, the house becomes tahor. Reb Eliezer says if its mouth is inside, the house remains tahor. If its mouth is outside, the house becomes tameh because the tumor exits through the rear. Reb Yehuda ben Sarah says in any of these cases, the house becomes tameh. How long can the corpse flesh remain inside and still convey tumor? 3 24-hour periods. And regarding birds and fish, long enough to be thrown into a fire and become burnt. These are the words of Reb Shimon. Reb Yehuda ben Sarah says regarding birds and fish for 24 hours. And the Avodah Zorah. Okay. Oh, Aleph above. In a place in which there is a custom to sell small livestock to idolaters, it is permitted to sell them. In a place where there is a custom not to sell, it is not permitted to sell. But in every place it is forbidden to sell them large livestock, calves or foals, whether whole or maimed. Whether Rabbi Yehuda permits in the case of a maimed one, and Ben Becerra permits in the case of a horse. One might sell them bears or lions or anything that it has in it the potential to cause injury to the public. One may not build with them a basilica, scaffold, or a stadium or a platform, but one may build with them bamazos and bathhouses. When they reach the vault in which they place an idol, it is forbidden to build. One may not make ornaments on an idol, such as a necklace, earrings, or finger rings. If Elias says, for payment, it is permitted. One may not sell them anything attached to the ground, but may sell it when it is cut. If Yehuda says he may sell it to him on the condition that it be cut. One may not rent them houses in Eretz Israel, and as needless to mention fields. In Syria, one may not rent them field houses, but not fields, and outside of Eretz Israel, one may sell them houses and rent them fields. These are the words of Rav Meir. Rabbi Yossi says in Eretz Israel, one may rent them houses, but not fields. In Syria, one may sell them houses and rent fields, and outside of Eretz Israel, one may sell them both these and those.
Okay.
Uh,
Right.
there's one more?
No, that's
I
it.
thought-
We're done.
Okay. All right.
Have a wonderful day.
Have a great day. Enjoy.
Yeah.
And
Bye.
hopefully we'll have a calm night. Okay.
Bezrat Hashem.
Bye.